For those of you who are just joining us, you are seeing a live look inside the Quest airlock aboard the International Space Station as the crew prepares for today's spacewalk, US Spacewalk 90. Today's spacewalkers are NASA astronauts Tracy, Dyson, and Mike Barrett. On the right side of your screen is Dyson, and on the left side of your screen is Barrett, and assisting them through procedures at today's spacewalk are NASA astronauts Matt Dominick towards the top of your screen and NASA astronaut Jeanette Epps towards the bottom right of your screen. They have completed the pre-breathe protocols and are currently working to don the SAFERs, or Simplified Aid for EVA Rescue. They will then move into the crew lock portion of the Quest airlock to do some final communications and systems checks before depressurizing the crew lock to bring it down to vacuum to match that of space. The go for depressurization is currently scheduled for about 25 minutes from now, around 7 a.m. Central, 8 a.m. Eastern. And about 30 minutes after that, we should see the start time of the spacewalk. That start time coincides to when they switch the suits to battery power. The spacewalk is scheduled to last about 6.5 hours, and it will complete the removal of a faulty electronics box called a radio frequency group from a communications antenna on the starboard truss of the space station. They will also collect some samples for analysis to better understand the ability of microorganisms to survive and reproduce on the exterior of the space station. And just now you saw NASA astronaut Tracy Dyson being moved into the crew lock. Once she is in the crew lock, they will begin to attach the SAFER, or Simplified Aid for EVA Rescue, to the back of NASA astronaut Mike Barrett's suit on the left-hand side of your screen. And floating into your screen now, you can see the SAFER, or Simplified Aid for EVA Rescue, for Mike Barrett's suit. The SAFER is sort of like a jet pack that they attach to the back of the EMU, or extravehicular mobility unit. The crew will have 2 tethers attaching them to the space station at all times during today's spacewalk, but the SAFER serves as a backup should they get detached.
CCV1, CCV8.
Houston copies.
On your screen, you can see NASA astronaut Mike Barrett as they attach the safer or simplified aid for EVA rescue. Further back on your screen, you can see NASA astronaut Tracy Dyson. Her safer has already been attached and she has been moved into the crew lock portion of the Quest airlock. Barrett will be joining her there shortly, and then they will begin final systems and communications checks of the EMU, or extravehicular mobility unit, before beginning to depressurize the crew lock to match that of space. The go for depress is in about 15 minutes from now. We should see that happen at about 7 a.m. Central, 8 a.m. Eastern.
Houston, Matt on airlock. We're in step 60. I'm looking at pushing the TV button from Mike. We're not getting a good WVS light possible for you, but we're going to visually check.
We copy.
And Houston, for some reason, we're showing Reba off. Can we go Reba on?
Matt, you're go to take the Reba on. ON.
That makes sense. Maybe somewhere in the shuffle here it went back to off. Doesn't matter. We're going Reba on. And with Reba on, we got a good WVS light now.
We copy.
And you just heard the voice of NASA astronaut Matt Dominick aboard the International Space Station call down to Mission Control Houston as he continues to work through steps to don the safer and work through some final EMU or extravehicular mobility unit configurations before moving NASA astronaut Mike Barrett into the crew lock. You heard him reference seeing EMU TV and powering that on. This references the camera for the EMU, which will help provide views outside the International Space Station as the crew works through today's spacewalk. And now you can see NASA astronauts Matt Dominick and Jeanette Epps moving NASA astronaut Mike Barrett into the crew lock to join his fellow spacewalker Tracy Dyson. After they finish moving the crew into the crew lock portion of the Quest airlock, they will begin to close the hatch between the crew lock and the equipment lock. After that is complete, they will begin the depressurization process of the crew lock to bring the airlock down to vacuum to match that of space. The crew lock begins at a pressure of 14.7 psi or pounds per square inch to match the rest of the space station, which is similar to what we experience here on Earth. And now on your screen, you can also see NASA astronaut Sunny Williams. Williams is the pilot for NASA's Boeing Crew Flight Test mission. The Boeing Starliner spacecraft launched to the space station earlier this month, and they are continuing to spend time aboard the station as part of their flight test. And we are now in a brief but expected handover between satellites of the Tracking and Data Relay Satellite System, or TDRES. We should regain those video views from the space station shortly. You are seeing a live look inside the International Space Station Flight Control Room here in Mission Control, Houston. Towards the middle of your screen is the Capcom or Capsule Communicator console position. Supporting today's spacewalk as the ground IV or spacewalk communicator is NASA astronaut Steve Bowen. Bowen is third on the all-time spacewalkers list with 10 EVAs totaling 65 hours and 57 minutes of spacewalking time outside the International Space Station. Supporting the team of spacewalkers on the International Space Station, we also have the flight director today, who is Rebecca Wingfield, and the lead spacewalk officer, Sandy Fletcher. And now we have a live look back inside the Quest airlock of the International Space Station. You can see the team working to close the hatch between the crew lock and the equipment lock of the Quest airlock aboard the International Space Station. The spacewalkers are currently in the crew lock portion of the airlock, and then once the hatch is closed, they will do some final suit systems checks before beginning the depressurization process. In the equipment lock portion, which is the portion closer to your view, we see NASA astronaut Matt Dominick, and he is supporting the spacewalk as the prime spacewalk support. He's going to be joined by NASA astronaut Jeanette Epps, and then also on your screen right now you can see NASA astronaut Sonny Williams and Butch Wilmore, who are part of NASA's Boeing crew flight test.
We copy 5 and 12. Good numbers.
As the teams continue to work through procedures in preparation for today's spacewalk, the International Space Station is currently flying over southern Canada, just north of Montana. We should see the go for depressurization of the crew lock shortly after the hatches are closed. And then we will have an official start of the EVA once the EMUs, or extravehicular mobility units, are switched to battery power. We're expecting that to take place in about 30 minutes, around 7:30 a.m. Central, 8:30 a.m. Eastern. And you just saw NASA astronaut Dominick close the hatch between the equipment lock and the crew lock of the Quest airlock. And we should hear that go for depressurization here shortly.
Houston, airlock 1, step 76 and 77 are complete.
Houston, copies. 78 is complete. We're working 79 and 80. We'll call you back shortly.
Roger.
TC Mike, this is Houston. You're now hot mic'd. Good morning.
Good morning, Will. And good morning, Will. We have 2 copies.
And airlock Houston, step 79 is complete. And you have a go for step 81, as well as performing the crew lock depress section of the crew lock depress cue card.
Airlock copies. We have a go in step 81.
And the team here in Mission Control Houston just gave the crew aboard the International Space Station the go to begin that depressurization process.
We're going step 84.
Good copy.
Mike, EV2, check. The switch, depress pump power is off.
Depress pump power is off. OFF.
Copy. Verify the depress pump enable LED is on.
That is on.
And with that, we are stepping into the depress cue card.
Copy.
V2 on the UIA, switch depress pump power to on.
Depress pump power coming on in 3, 2, 1, on.
We're in a wait period.
See that?
Okay, next step, depress pump manual isolation valve to open.
Have it open. Depress pump manual ISO valve is open.
Monitor your suit P gauge, your suit pressure gauge is less than 5.5.
DD1 copies. DD2.
Crew lock is at 6.0, expect alert tone.
Copy. Roger.
The crew lock depressurization process has begun. The crew lock began at a pressure of 14.7 psi or pounds per square inch, which matches the rest of the International Space Station and is similar to that which we experience on Earth. The pressure is currently down to about 12 psi and continuing to drop. It'll continue to decline until it reaches that of vacuum to match space.
EV1's at 4.6 on the gauge.
EV2 also 4.6.
4.8.
4.8. EV2.
V1 is reaching 5.
EV2 at 5.
About 5. T on GTM is 5.1 EV1. 5.2.
EV2 at 5 steady.
5.0, here in a hum.
Yep.
0.9.
EV2 4.9, loud hum. Just checking, is that expected, that loud hum?
Tom check. Can we hear you guys?
The lock's got you loud and clear.
Okay.
Are you hearing the same hum?
Negative.
EV2 holding steady 4.9, loud hum.
Mike,
Houston EV2, com check.
EV2, we have you loud and clear. That's expected hum.
All right.
Copy.
EV1 2P. Stable 4.9.
EV2 stable 4.9. A lot louder than I expected.
Yep.
And the crew lock pressure is down to about 9.9 psi or pounds per square inch and continuing to decrease. Once it reaches about 5 psi, they will then conduct some leak checks.
And EV2 still stable 4.9.
Change EV1.
The crew lock is down to 8.5 pounds per square inch as they continue the depressurization process ahead of today's spacewalk. The crew lock portion of the Quest airlock is continuing its depressurization process. It is down to about 7.3 pounds per square inch. Once it reaches about 5 psi, they will then conduct some leak checks. They will then continue the depressurization down to about 2 pounds per square inch before reporting some initial tether configurations. And then once it gets down to less than half a pound per square inch, close to that of vacuum to match that of space, they will open and stow the EV hatch.
How you doing, Mike?
Doing good. 4.9.
That's still at 4.9.
6.5 on the airlock P.
So, it's 6.
Oh, I see 6.5.
The crew lock pressure is down to about 6 psi or pounds per square inch.
Here we go.
On your screen, you can see NASA astronaut Dominick. He is helping today's spacewalkers, NASA astronauts Tracy, Dyson, and Mike Barrett through the procedures, and he will be the prime support for today's spacewalk robotics operations as well, and he will be joined by NASA astronaut Jeanette Epps as backup support. The crew lock is now just under 5.5 pounds per square inch. Once it gets to 5 psi, they will then conduct some leak checks.
5.5.
Do the same. 5.3.
Copy.
Is he still stable for 9?
Yes, I am. How about you?
Thanks.
All right, with the crew lock at 5.0, depress pump manual isolation valve to closed. Expect alert tone.
Roger.
Depress pump manual iso valve is closed.
Closed. EV1, EV2 on your DCM. Switch display status until leak check question mark displayed, and then switch display as yes for 2 seconds. Follow the displayed instructions.
2 copies.
2 copies.
One leak check complete. Into O2 actuator EVA.
EV2, leak check complete. Setting O2 isolation EVA. Drop Mr. T-bar here.
Station copies, and once you're there, report that it's in that position.
And we just heard confirmation that we have 2 good leak checks on the EMUs, or the extravehicular mobility units.
Checking. Two actuators in EVA for EV1.
Copy EV1, O2 actuator EVA.
I'm working it.
Take your time, Mike.
Sure. Yeah, hang on. Got a bunch of adjustable tethers in the way.
Get your finger down.
Again?
You can see your finger.
You can probably see it better than I can.
I think I can. Got to bring it over.
I got to clear these adjustables out of the way. Right in my way. There we go.
There you go. You got it. That's you're on it.
Yeah. position. Dipping and press.
Let's see. Like if you can roll to your left a little bit.
You can grab it?
I can't, I just gotta get lower. So,
hang on. I will let you do that if you can. Let's see. See, I've got too much stuff in the way. I keep trying?
Yep. Down.
Down which way?
Toward me. Yep. Okay, you're in EVA.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Just check the look.
Check the DCL.
I see O2 position EVA. Thank you.
Okay. You know we can do that to each other.
Yes, you're there. Gonna bat this camera out of the way.
Matt, both EV1, EV2 are in EVA.
Copy, station copy. EV1 and EV2 are in EVA. And Mike, take your time to resituate your T-bar, and when you're ready, I got the next step.
Ready that? Stand by. Okay, ready for next step.
Awesome. Step 7, depress pump manual isolation valve to open. EV expect alert tone.
Open. Manual ISO valve is open.
Copy. For your awareness, emergency MPEP is also coming open.
Roger.
And with those good leak checks, the depressurization process of the crew lock
Pressure gauge less than 5.5.
has begun.
EV1 is less than 5.5.
EV2 is at 4.5.
The crew lock pressure
Our next actions will occur at crew lock of 2.0.
Roger.
The crew lock pressure is now just under 4.4 pounds per square inch. Once it is down to 2 pounds per square inch,
EV1 is still at, well now I'm at 5.0. That's expected, right?
Yeah, I just thought that's a 5.0 also.
once it
4.9 is steady.
once it is down to 2 psi, they will report some initial tether configurations. The pressure is now under 3.5 pounds per square inch.
Airlock Houston, since we have a moment here, the depress is looking good, proceeding as expected.
Thanks, Will.
Copy.
The crew lock is now just under 3 pounds per square inch and continuing to decline.
I may relocate the adjustables in my mini workstation there just to enhance visibility when we come in.
Sounds like a good plan. And we'll check each other over before.
Absolutely.
And the crew lock is at 2 pounds per square inch as they continue the depressurization process.
EV1, EV2, we've arrived at 2 psi for the crew lock. You can take the depress pump manual isolation valve to close.
Depress pump manual iso valve is closed.
Copy closed. On the UIA, switch depress pump power to off, OFF.
Depress pump.
We are now in a brief but expected handover between satellites for the Tracking and Data Relay Satellite System, or TDRS, which provides those views from the International Space Station. We should get those camera views back here shortly. While they're at that 2 psi, they will report the initial tether configuration to Mission Control Houston. Once all of the tethers are confirmed and in the correct place, they will continue the crew lock depressurization all the way down to less than half a pounds per square inch, and then they will open and stow the
Houston, Matt on 2 for tether config. Sorry, on 1.
And Matt, go ahead for tether config. If you're ready to turn them over, I'm ready to pick them up.
I think maybe we were in short LOS or handover when I called it the first time, but you have a go to start tether config.
Thank you, and I'll pick up. Thank you, Matt, and Tracy and Mike, and I can either lead you through your tether config or you can tell me what you have, and we'll work from there.
All right, well, how about we just kick it off and then you tell us what we missed?
That'll work.
Oh, great.
Okay, so we'll start. All right, Mike, why don't we start with you
Okay, nope.
at the anchor point?
Roger that. Steve, good to hear your voice. My height waist tether is connected big hook to the airlock D-ring extender. Hook is closed and locked. The small end is connected to my right D-ring extender. That hook is closed and locked. Let's see. Stand by. Let me pull all this stuff in here. So you might actually be able to see my tether reels better than I.
Yeah.
Since they're kind of down at your end.
All right, so I'm looking at Mike's left ring extender has a red hook. The gate closed, bell locked, and here's tether closed lock black. Black is red reel. Sorry, yellow hook is on his green reel. Bell closed, lock, black, and black. His green hook is on his red reel. And locked. And his reels are locked. His anchor is attached to one waist tether. Both hooks are gate closed, locked, black on black. And 81's waist tether right side connected to D-ring extender. Bell closed, gate was closed, bell locked, black on black, and D1 red hook is on the same D-ring extender with the hook closed, bell locked, black on black. The yellow hook on the red reel is attached to the green reel with the closed, bell locked, black on black. And green hook is on the red reel. It's black on black, and the anchor for EV1 is on EV1 workstation. Sail closed, unlocked. You miss anything?
We're checking to make sure everything. Okay, so just double check that your reels are unlocked for you and you have a good tether config.
Thank you. Yes. All right, we've got the green reel is unlocked and red reel is unlocked.
good tether config, and now you get to wait and stare at the hatch and wait for that pressure to get in range, to get it open.
Okay, well, while I'm staring, Mike's going to bring my feet down a little bit.
All right.
Position somewhat.
Let's see.
So maybe if you could rotate so that your twist is toward the forward side of the crew lock.
Okay.
That might give a little bit more room.
Okay.
Hatch. Stage. I'm going to move forward for that, and then I'll move. Forward, I mean. For the seat, yeah. For the seating bag, and then I'll move for the UIA.
Roger.
The mechanism.
And we just heard confirmation of good tether configurations. They're continuing the depressurization of the crew lock down to vacuum. It's currently at just under 1 pound per square inch. Once the crew lock pressure is under 0.5 pound per square inch.
Toward the aft side of the airlock, imagine the RFG in that position and think about how much room you have, and try and visualize where that cone is going to be relative to Tracy.
Yeah, I've been kind of thinking about that. Be a bit of a squeeze. I think we can do it, no?
What about the light? If you could reach that.
I'll be able to reach him if I'm not on my umbilical, I think. I have to come in on my right side and kind of carefully reach up there. Fortunately, that's where the tether is going to be. Left side up.
Yeah.
You're hearing some conversation between today's spacewalkers.
Get that on there without trying to give it a hug. Against that Z93 paint.
A gentle hug may be okay.
Steve is right.
He said.
I got a question about my seat pressure. I know we were anticipating a 50 high usage, but can I expect to maintain this pressure throughout the EVA?
No, that your pressure will bleed down over the next few minutes. Once the relief valve seats, and then it holds steady for a while, and then you just kind of breathe it down. The fact that the pressure is holding is a good sign that your relief valve is fully seated, and we'll be watching everything. It looks good so far.
Awesome. Okay, thanks. Mike, when I start to work the hatch, if you could keep the reels towards you so I keep the hatchway clear.
I will do that.
That'd be a big help.
All right, I'm turning him down here now, and I'll keep an eye on him.
Thanks a lot.
Crew lock is now under 0.8 pound per square inch as they continue the depressurization down to vacuum. Once it's at 0.5 pound per square inch, they will begin to open the EV hatch and stow it. Around that time, they will also switch their suits to battery power, which will mark the official start of the spacewalk. Crew lock is now at 0.7 pounds per square inch.
1.7 on the PSID.
Roger.
Crew is now down to 0.6 pounds per square inch as they continue the depressurization down to vacuum ahead of today's spacewalk. For those of you who are just joining us, we are covering today's spacewalk, where NASA astronauts Tracy, Dyson, and Mike Barrett will exit the International Space Station to complete the removal of a faulty electronics box called a radio frequency group from a communications antenna on the starboard truss of the space station. They will also collect samples for analysis to better understand the ability of microorganisms to survive and reproduce on the exterior of the orbiting laboratory. In preparation for today's spacewalk, they have already completed the pre-breathe protocols to prevent decompression sickness, and they are currently in the crew lock portion of the International Space Station's Quest airlock, completing the depressurization process down to vacuum. Here in the room supporting today's spacewalk, we have Flight Director Rebecca Wingfield, who you can see on your screen. And then supporting as the ground IV or spacewalk communicator, we have NASA astronaut Steve Bowen.
PSA might work a little quick.
Copy. Just about to ask, actually.
The crew lock is almost 2.5 pounds per square inch. Once it reaches this marker, the crew will start the procedures to open the EV hatch. After that step is complete, they will turn their EMUs, or extravehicular mobility units, to battery power. Once that step is complete, that will start the clock for today's spacewalk. Today's spacewalk is expected to last about 6.5 hours.
Okay. You good?
That wasn't me.
Oh.
almost sounded like bleed over conference somewhere.
Yeah.
Mike, I'm hoping there's nobody else on the loops with you guys. But how's the gauge looking, Tracy?
Did you guys hear? Did you guys hear that little blip?
I think before you guys started docking, so I must have heard the same thing you heard.
Yep.
And Tracy, we're looking for a pressure less than 0.6.
We are at a pressure less than 0.6 of PSID.
Okay, you have a go to proceed. So Tracy,
Copy, Steve.
you can open and stow the EV hatch.
Ready for the hatch?
I'm ready. I've got both our tethered back here.
Thank you. You got to go for the hatch?
You have a go for the hatch.
Hey, Mike, I'm going to do this in 2 steps. I'm going to first latch it, then I may need to reposition myself to swing it open, okay?
Roger that.
And we just heard the go for the crew to open the EV hatch.
Levers unlocked.
Once that step is complete,
And handle is in the back, unlatched.
once that step is complete, they will turn their suits to internal battery power to start today's spacewalk.
Mike, can you have control of my feet?
That's, they have to come down towards me a little more. Okay. I got one of your foots. Got your left foot. Trying to keep mine out of the way.
All right, hatch is open.
Awesome. Let go of your leg.
Thank you. Okay.
And for Matt, you can take the emergency MPEV to close.
That is complete.
Okay, Tracy and Mike, we're ready to pick up in the post-depress. So I'd like you to switch your power to battery and stagger your switch throws.
Okay, stand by. Okay. V1, power going to bat. Stand by. What's the bat, EV1? And I received the 2P high message.
Okay. And I copy EV1, you're powered to bat, right?
Yes.
You're powered to bat?
Yes. Power to bat on EV1.
Okay.
2P high.
Powered to bat on EV2.
All right.
SOP rate 0.
Sure.
I would like you to switch your display pro to verify a functional display.
And EV1 has a functional display.
EV2 functional display.
UIA, switch power of EV1 and 2 switches to off.
EV1 and 2 power switches off, lights out.
Copy all 4 LED. disconnect your SCU from your DCM and install a DCM cover and stow the SCU in its pouch.
Hey, Steve, when do we go water on?
Once you get the SCU stowed and we check a couple other things, then we'll take it to on. But not quite yet. You'll get there.
Gotcha. Okay. Just make sure I got my pouch. This. Oh, my goodness.
When?
My helmet fogged up. Oh, no, it was just ice crystal.
Oh,
water
wow.
flowing out of my SCU, guys.
Yeah, there's a lot of particulates flowing around here.
Yeah, can we turn them off for the UIA?
And you can reconnect your SCU to your DCM, and we'll take a look at that.
There's a lot of water flowing.
Is it still coming out?
I don't think we can do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's water everywhere here.
Okay, let's get your SCU reconnected
I
to your
want to try
DCM.
it.
Yeah, there's literally water everywhere here now.
Steve, I don't think we should try it. I think we need to turn the water off. There's water everywhere. Not sticking out on my SCU.
And Tracy, the best way we can do this is if you can.
Do you have an active leak on?
Tracy, if you can connect your SCU back to your DCM, that's the best way to stop this.
All right.
Live view of the airlock camera for you.
It's connected, but I don't have it locked yet.
Just work on getting it locked, and I just want to verify.
Stand by.
The water was coming from the SCU side.
Yes, I can verify that the water was coming from the SCU side.
Okay.
Stand by. Well, I got ice all over my hands.
All right, just work on getting your SCU connected, and I'm going to start working through the checklist for this.
How's your vision, TC?
Vision's good. Getting a tone. Well, reserve water on. Time left 30.
Copy the reserve water on, and have you got your SCU reconnected yet?
I have it connected, I just think it's locked.
All right, work on getting it
Not
locked.
locked yet.
And Mike, I just want to verify that you're still in the SCU.
I have reconnected my SCU and it is locked.
You can help Tracy get hers locked. We'll
Okay.
be good.
I'm just thinking about how I can
Stand
help.
by. SCU is on and locked.
Well done.
Okay, so we both have your SCUs on and locked, and that should help here.
Put the reserve water on. Time left 29. Can I put on my ears on my gloves?
You just want to double check that your SCU is locked.
SCU is locked.
Okay. So with both of you on SCUs and locked, we're going to terminate for the day. So Tracy, we'd like you to shut the EV hatch and lock it.
Work. Okay, Mike. Be a little more challenging than
understand.
Keep the others.
All right, standing it back.
And Tracy, this is
Here.
this is one of the more difficult things you're going to do. So one of the tricks you might use is using the large hook, one of your large hooks from your waist tether, and poke the latching mechanism, because that gives you a little bit more room to get your body out of the way to get that hatch seated.
Okay. Mike, I'm going to do this in 2 steps.
Okay.
And since my waist tether is connected to your waist tether,
yep.
I'll take my anchor. Steve, do you think I can do it with a small hook?
Yeah, the big hook just gives you a little bit further reach, and I know, personally, there's some days you need a little bit more reach. Just whatever it takes, you can poke it. You get it off the seat, and sometimes it likes to go reseat itself. So you got to get that momentum started to get the hatch over center, and then it goes right down.
Roger that. Mark.
You've heard quite a bit of communication between the crew and the team here in Mission Control Houston. The spacewalk for today has been canceled due to a spacesuit cooling unit water leak that began right after the suits were put on internal battery power. The crew is now moving back into the airlock and closing that EV hatch. Then they will begin the repressurization process.
Mike, can you reach my feet?
So you're going to have to let go of the reels.
Yep, that's okay. Pull my feet up toward your head.
All right.
A bit more?
Hang on. I'm going to unlock something here. I got you.
Okay, just a little bit more. All right, here it comes. All right, now you can go a little bit forward. Your head.
Go out forward.
Okay, the hatches. The screws.
Good to.
Yeah. Okay. Latched and locked.
The EV hatch is
Well done.
Thank you.
All right.
closed and locked. That's good
Latched
news.
and locked. I got a frozen finger, so if I could turn my glove heaters on, that'd be great. Can I turn on my glove heaters?
Yes, you can. You can turn on your glove heaters, and that should help with your fingertips. And Mike, while you're sitting there, just check the oxygen EMU 1 and 2 valves are both still open.
Oxygen EMU 1 and 2 valves both open.
And Tracy, you just want to make sure how you feel in the suit. We understand your hands are cold. Want to make sure you're you feel like your LCVG is working, and you can obviously adjust your heating and cooling a little bit if you need to.
Right now I'm comfortable, but I do feel a little warm.
All right, we copy that.
There's water on, 24 minutes left. set data on my suit. Things just got quiet, but I think I should hear the fan still.
Yeah, as long as so your fan's still running. There's a couple indications we'd like to get from you. We'd like your water pressure and your water gas pressure.
The water gas is 15. Water is 15.1.
15 and 15.1, that sounds good.
Why would it say reserve water on then?
Yeah, the reserve water on locked, and now it's just the timer that's going to be running. You've got good pressures. Your suit, as long as you're comfortable, it should still feel good. We're going to sit like this and have a little bit of a discussion before we determine exactly what our next step is. You should be stable. Let us know if there are any changes. Now that you've actually got that hatch shut, think about doing that again because it's never the same place.
Okay. But am I right? Are we, you said terminate, right?
Yeah, that's what we're holding for right now. We're just discussing which way we want to go with this. We're going to check all the indications, and because that reserve water on is a potential indication that we were taking water from the suit, and that leak was on the DCM side, as opposed to just on the SCU side. There is a towel in the bags in front of you if you have any water still floating around, or if you want to try to clean up any ice crystals. You can take care of that. I'm not sure what else you're seeing there. Do you continue to see any ice chips floating around or anything?
Yeah, it's a little snowy in here, but not as bad as it was when the SCU was off. I have ice on my glove still, and on my helmet a little bit. But if it's all the same to you, I'd prefer not to use my hands at the moment to get into that bag to get those towels.
How you want to manage that? Are your hands getting warm again? Your heater's working, I hope.
They're not getting colder, so left hand is pretty good.
It does take a while for those heaters to kick on, and I've noted that after a while they seem to get a little bit too warm. So let us know by a couple more minutes if they don't come on. We'll talk about that as well.
Okay. Mike, did you have any water? You didn't, right?
No.
You just saw what was coming out of mine?
Yeah, it seems like you're all spewing from here. I couldn't tell where it was coming from, the CU or DCM. You could, but it was all from you.
Okay. I got an Arctic blast all over my visor.
Yeah, just ice was flowing everywhere.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if it was if it was on the outside or the inside.
Yeah, wow.
I couldn't see anything out there.
For those of you just joining us, you're seeing live views inside the International Space Station's Quest airlock, where NASA astronauts Tracy, Dyson, and Mike Barrett are in the crew lock portion. They were scheduled for a spacewalk today to complete the removal of a radio frequency group as well as collecting microorganism samples shortly after they switched their suits.
Warming up yet?
They're thawing out, yeah. They're not warm yet. Just moving them.
Roger.
Shortly after their suits were switched to internal battery power about 15 minutes ago, the crew reported a water leak, which was coming from the spacesuit cooling unit on the spacesuits. And after that call took place, the crew went ahead and closed the EV hatch on the space station, and teams are currently working through next steps.
And so, Tracy, just another quick question about your SCU. Did you get it fully clear from the DCM as you were removing it? so you could verify exactly which direction that water was coming from, or did you keep it close, realizing that something was leaking?
I had it way clear. In fact, I was trying to hold it outside the hatchway. In the cameras, you may have seen some snowflakes because it was coming out of the port. That's if I'm not mistaken. If you're holding it in your right hand, it was the bottom right quadrant, and it was flowing out of it pretty good. I couldn't see what was coming out of my DCM because I had a layer of ice on my visor. But there, I brushed it away and I could see the SCU, which I was holding out. Wasn't out of the hatch, but there was enough of a gap in the thermal cover that I could see the ice crystals were flowing out there. And then, just like a snow cone machine, there was ice forming at that port on the SCU.
Sounds like you had pretty good rate out of the SCU. I mean, if you get ice on your visor that quick and you had a pretty good cloud, good job getting the SCU back on and locked, because that's definitely a little bit of ice buildup. That could have been a big problem. Thanks for getting that done.
Yeah, pretty good. And Steve, it was instantaneous. As soon as I I unlocked it, and as soon as I lifted it away, it was a blast all over my visor. So it wasn't until I cleared the ice that I could see it was pouring out of the SCU.
Yeah, copy that. Those are good words. That helps the discussion down here a lot.
Hey, Houston, also, I happened to be out the gem window I saw a pretty good storm going out that way, heading port. Thousands of ice crystals, just so you know.
Those are great words. That helps a lot as well.
My fingers are warming up.
Okay, great. Great job getting the hatch closed as well.
Thanks. There's teamwork.
For the end effector.
Mm-hmm.
Cold fingers.
After some discussion here in the room of Mission Control Houston, the team has confirmed that we will be terminating today's spacewalk following a spacesuit cooling unit water leak in Tracy Dyson's suit that occurred after the suits were turned to battery power. We also heard confirmation that the EV hatch on the space station.
I moved my TCV to a setting of 3.
My copy, setting of 3, getting a little bit cold in there. Tracy, if you can do us a favor and just double check, make sure you have the EV hatch closed, locked, and then we'll pick up with the cue card.
I can confirm that the EV hatch is closed and locked, lever locked.
Okay.
And it's snowing. Still.
Understand. Is your visor pretty clear now? Just want to double check.
Yes. Save for a little bit of ice at the base, but I can see fine.
Okay. And based on the report of the amount of water we saw from the gem coming from there, our one concern is obviously the seal on the EV hatch. So give us one last second to double check before we proceed.
Okay.
All right, so on the UIA, we're going to pick up when the preview press cue card, switch power EV1 and 2 switches to on, and verify that both LEDs are on.
Stand by. Break.
Hold it.
I just want to hear that if I go to SCU, I'm going to be okay because there's water on that SCU interface.
You're still leaking water, QC?
I don't know, but when I put it on, there was still water shooting out.
Should be fine.
So we can assume that there's water in there. Set?
Should be fine. That should be separated. But that's a good question. We're all looking at each other, and we all agree we should be fine. One last delay. We'll do one check. That section obviously should be isolated, and you know how those electrical connections are made up in there. It has a little bit of insulation around, and it's unlikely you would have gotten it fully closed if it had anything in there to be concerned about.
Okay, because I understand that when it's mated, they're isolated. But while it was unmated, it was shooting water at my DCM. So we can presume that water got into that connector, the electrical connector. And I don't know, I mean, I'm sure it's sublimated, but if there was any ice crystals in there, you're telling me that I wouldn't be able to get my SCU on and locked?
Yeah, but, out of concern, we're looking at just bringing you up without that, without your power. We've got plenty of battery power.
Okay,
It's not going to be an issue.
Okay, thanks.
So, Steve, we'll get back to that step, but just to confirm, it'll be a normal power on for EV1, correct, for the Q card?
Yeah, we're going to wait on that, Mike. So we're going to we'll wait on command. We'll bring you up with power. We've got plenty of battery power, so this is not an issue. So we'll bring you up on the SCU, and we'll leave her off at standby 1.
Holding. How you doing over there, TC?
I'm good, Mike, thanks. How about you?
Good.
I turned my glove heater off, so...
Gotcha.
Is it working, Tracy?
It did.
That's good to hear.
I turned off my glove heater. I turned off the glove heater, so it did the trick.
Okay, so we're going to pick up here, and the delta is we're going to bring Mike up on the SCU, so I'll give him the switch throws for that. And during the repress, Tracy, you should expect a battery amps high message, which you can acknowledge, but that's just an indication the battery's being used a little bit more than expected, and there's no action for you beyond just acknowledgement.
Okay, thanks for the heads up.
You are seeing live views inside the International Space Station's Quest airlock. NASA astronauts Tracy, Dyson, and Mike Barrett are on the other side of that hatch in the crew lock portion. Shortly after, the crew lock was brought down to vacuum and their suits were switched to internal battery power. The spacewalk.
You can take power at EV2, one switch to on.
EV2 copies, EV2 only power coming up to on. With a good light. EMU.
Indication.
And I see good volts, 18.6.
Okay, and for EV2 only, take the power to SCU.
EV2, power and SCU, expected tone.
So for EV1 and 2, we'd like you to take O2 actuator to press.
North.
North. EV2, O2 actuator press.
EV1, O2, press.
Okay.
Verify. I think I'm in between.
Okay, I understand both EV1 and EV2 are in press. Check that the EV hatch MPEV is closed.
EV hatch, MPEV is closed.
Just to confirm, TC, you are in press, right?
I am in press.
Right, sure.
Okay, we want to take the IV hatch equalization valve throttle.
Oh, stand by. Stand by.
All right, we will wait.
Stand by. Stand by. I'm getting the actuator fault, so I must not be in press. Stand by.
Actually,
Okay,
so am I,
right.
but it sure seems like I'm press. Let's see.
Yeah, once you get it there, give it a wiggle, make sure it seats.
It's the other way. I think it's now. I get that message. Oh, no, it's still question mark. Hold on.
And Tracy, just as a heads up, you might have a little ice built up in there, so a little bit of, you might have to wiggle it, shake it, get it seated. So this might take a little bit longer.
Now it's off. Hold on, it went into off. I need for it to cycle the. I got it on press now. O2 is in press.
All right, Tracy, I understand you are in press and you have
You
a
want
good
O2
indication.
press?
You are in good indication for press, correct?
DCM says O2.
And Mike, just to verify, you two are in
EV1.
press?
And same. Yep, same for EV2.
Check our data up here as well, or down here.
I know where your head is.
Steve, my reserve water on message. It's off, right? We have time left, 4 minutes.
All right, so your reserve water on says 12 minutes. As I said, that's a dummy timer. You have good pressures, so that's not a concern.
Okay.
We see both of you in press now, so we are going to proceed from there. Check the EV hatch MPEV is closed, Tracy.
Yes, it's closed. The hatch MPEV is closed.
And now take the IV hatch equalization valve and throttle off to norm to establish the required rate.
And should we do that, or I'm expecting IV to do that?
Yeah. Hey, Matt's there.
And Mike, we would like you to do that because...
And Steve, Matt, I'm ready to pick up the repass cue card if you'd like, and understand step 3, IV hatch, equalization valve throttle off to north.
Yeah, I think we're going to let Mike do that.
Go ahead, Steve.
I'd like to have Mike do that to bring this up so they can manage it. And then once we get through the leak check at 5.0, that's probably when I'll turn over to you, Matt. We want to make sure we get a good seal on the hatch based on the possibility that there's ice there. So we're gonna do that leak check. You verify it at 5, and once we're done with that point, I'll be able to turn it right over to you after that.
Copy.
All right, get in position here real quick.
Let me know if you need me to do anything, Mike.
No, fine. All right, I'm in position. I have a hand on it, and I'm going to start very gently.
Following the termination of today's spacewalk, the EV hatch has been closed and they are now beginning the repressurization process of the crew lock.
It's a little forced to get it out of the deep end, and I don't want to crack it open too far. It's too far.
We're starting to see pressure coming up, so you should be feeling it here in a moment.
All right, I should be about a third of the way between Hoff and Norm. How's the press, TC?
It's good.
Yeah, it's definitely making some ice fly around, and it's already starting to liquefy. Amazing.
Excellent physics experiment. Sort of unplanned, but good observations.
You're welcome.
Passing 1.5 is what we're seeing.
What's the rate, TC?
It's good. Thanks for asking.
See, it's coming to 2.3.
Do you agree?
Okay.
And you should expect an alert tone at 4.
Roger. Just as an FYI, Steve, I don't think I could reach this with the RFG here.
That's good to know. That's very good to know. Thank you for that.
Not without moving it outboard a little bit. A lot.
The pressure inside the crew lock is now up to 3.5 pounds per square inch and climbing. Once it hits 5 psi, they will wait for a couple of minutes for the crew lock pressure to stabilize.
Here's the alert tone.
When you get to 5, you can hit the equalization valve to off.
Welcome. I see 4.5 for 5. IPSI, valve is off.
We're going to pick up with our leak check.
Roger.
All right, well, so we're going to let things stabilize here. And Tracy, you might end up with an O2 high usage rate based on the fact that you're coming up in pressure. So there's a couple things you might get along the way.
Okay.
Here. Let us know when you do.
Okay. I will. Right now my pressure stable, I think, is 4.2 on the gauge.
And stay with the EV2, 4.2.
Copy 4.2. And how's the hatch pressure gauge for you there, Tracy, that you're looking at?
It's reading like 7.5, negative 7 point on the negative side, between 10 and 5.
All right, we're just going to keep staring at that, and hopefully it holds steady, and then we'll be able to proceed once we get a good leak check.
I won't take my eyes off it.
This is one of those few times you actually want that gauge not to move.
I see. Say again.
This is one of the times you don't want that gauge to move.
Right, right.
The crew is continuing to work through repressurization procedures following the termination of today's spacewalk. U.S. Spacewalk 90.
And so Mike and Tracy, as we get through the leak check, as you look around and water starts to form, if you guys can keep an eye on where you see puddles and water forming, that might help the IV crew when they come in to help wipe up, to know where you think the water went.
Copy.
Yeah. Copy. I'll tell you that at least on this end of the crew lock, it was just crystals would run into the surface and start to stick there as we pressed up. It was pretty random. Certainly no big collections out of this end.
All right, that's good to know.
And every droplet I saw form is already evaporated in the low pressure.
Yeah, I just see water on my helmet. On my helmet, not in it, on it.
Good call.
And around my DCM. The SCU interface.
I was going to say that in and on, those are good words to use. We don't need another issue.
Yeah. Gauge still reads between 10 and 5 on the negative side.
Had a good leak check in step 7. And you can switch your glove heaters to off.
EV2 heaters off.
EV1, glove heaters are off.
All right, just double check, make sure there's no contamination on them. There shouldn't be, since you didn't go anywhere.
Right.
I know. No contamination.
EV1 and EV2, we can take O2 actuators to IV.
Can work.
Can work.
EV1 is an IV.
And we just heard confirmation of a good crew lock leak check as they continue the repressurization process.
And Mike, have you made it to IV yet?
Yeah, EV2's an IV with a good DCM.
Okay, that sounds good. All right, so Matt, I'm ready to turn it over to you with step 11. Do you copy all the deltas? There are two warnings that Tracy might get: battery amps high and O2 usage high. And we'd like to make sure that once you get the hatch open, that you understand where we're heading.
Hey, firm, you've got us into O2 actuator IV. We're going to we can either go into 1.240 directly, or we can use the one from the timeline that has the RFG stuff on it and just skip the RFG stuff. And I understand Tracy's warnings there for the O2 use high and the battery amps, and as well as the fact that Tracy's on battery power and Mike is on SU power.
All right, that sounds good, and we'll pick it up with the XDP version on the timeline as opposed to the standard or the FPV version.
Copy, yep, and that's 70-0155. But for that, I'm picking up here in step 11 of the repress cue card.
I agree, and it's all yours from step 11. Thanks for all your assistance.
Copy, controls.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you, Steve.
And Matt and Tracy's.
All right, Mike and Tracy, I'm going to start the IV hatch equalization path towards norm. Expecting left turn as we repress.
Matt, pause. Steve was saying something. Steve, can you repeat?
I was just thanking you for the opportunity to work with you again very shortly this morning. Hopefully next time we get a lot more work out of you.
Likewise, thanks, Steve.
As always, appreciate the calm voice in the non-expected.
And Mike, you already have the shortest EVA I know of, but this one doesn't count today, so you still have your old record still holds.
All right. Great. To caveat that, it was the shortest complete and successful EVA on record.
I think we got 12 minutes of EVA time on that.
All right. Thank you, Steve.
Yeah, thanks, Steve.
You're welcome.
Over to you, man.
Copy. Let me know if you need me to slow down for any ears or throttle in the IV hatch to norm or towards norm.
Roger.
Roger.
NASA astronaut Steve Bowen, who was serving as today's ground IV or spacewalk communicator, just handed over to NASA astronaut Matt Dominick aboard the International Space Station to continue taking the crew through the repressurization steps before they open the hatch between the crew lock and equipment lock portion of the Quest airlock. Before NASA astronaut Steve Bowen handed over the communications to NASA astronaut Matt Dominick, You heard him talking about a 12-minute EVA. That EVA took place on June 10th, 2009, with Steve Bowen as one of the spacewalkers to reconfigure the transfer compartment between the Zvezda and Zarya modules on the International Space Station. It was one of Bowen's 10 total spacewalks that he's done. The crew lock pressure is now up to 6.7 pounds per square inch and continuing to rise. For those of you who are just joining us, U.S. Spacewalk 90 scheduled to take place today.
EV1, EV2, how's the rate?
The rate is good.
Yeah, EV2 rate's good. Well done.
U.S. Spacewalk 90 scheduled to take place today was terminated due to a water leak in the service and cooling umbilical unit on NASA astronaut Tracy Dyson spacesuit. Dyson and NASA astronaut Mike Barrett had set their suits to internal battery power at 8:46 a.m. Eastern, 7:46 a.m. Central, and had opened the EV hatch before reporting the water issue. The crew is now working to repressurize the crew lock section of the Quest airlock before returning inside the station's equipment lock. For today's spacewalk, they had planned to complete the removal of a faulty electronics box from a communications antenna on the starboard truss of the space station, and had also intended to collect samples for analysis to better understand the ability of microorganisms to survive and reproduce on the exterior of the orbiting laboratory.
Good, Mike?
Yeah, I was going to say, TC, how you doing with the press?
I'm doing good. It's a good rate.
Okay, keep the rate?
Yes.
Copy. What was then before we go in and have to help Butch and Sonny with the UPA or something?
The crew lock pressure is now up to 8.3 pounds per square inch and continuing to climb. We expect that pressure to get up to about 14.7 psi before they open the hatch between the crew lock and the equipment lock to bring NASA astronauts Tracy Dyson and Mike Barrett back in and begin removing their suits.
Airlock Houston on 1 for mini big picture.
Go ahead.
All right, Matt, once we get the IV hatch open, we'd like for you to perform an inspection and give us a verbal report, taking a look at the suits and your best estimate of quantity of water in the crew lock. We do understand that some of that may have been lost.
Wilco, Butch is looking out the gem window. I went to the robotics workstation. I could see Iceflex flying around the space station on almost all the cameras. So that should give you a perspective. And looking in the airlock, it was pretty impressive. It was watching a snowstorm.
Houston copies. Thanks for that description. Once we get the report of the crew lock, we'd like for you to clean up with towels if you have any extra hands available. And then going into post-EVA procedure, obviously you could skip the RFG steps. We want you to stop prior to step 90 for EV1. So this is a SCU step. That may give us a chance to do some troubleshooting.
Copy. For EV2, stop prior to step 90. Wilco.
That's for EV1.
If I remember, Houston also, Sonny had the airlock camera up against the window during the snowstorm. If you want to go back in time and look at the tapes, it'll give you some idea what it looked like.
Copy. Thanks for that. And just to clarify, Matt, step 90 hold is for EV1.
Sorry, I misspeak there. Tracy, EV1, do not disconnect the SCU from the DCM.
Good copy.
Houston, we have, you're talking about having helping hands here. We have 4 people all lined up. You may be just off camera, but we're all lined up ready to pounce.
We copied. That's what we figured.
Excuse me. Awesome.
Just to give you guys a report of what I see in the crew lock, I see maybe 2 drops of water now where I am. It's not including my suit. It's on the crew lock wall. I don't think there's a lot, in other words.
Copy, I'm peeping actually through the window and not seeing much.
Houston copies 2 cups.
The repressurization.
That's not seeing too much.
Oh, okay. Drop, not cup. Drop.
TC, can you repeat? We didn't get the unit.
Drop. I see only a couple, so a few drops of water.
Copy, a couple drops.
In the crew lock. Yeah.
The repressurization process of the crew lock continuing to take place. The pressure is at 10.8 pounds per square inch and continuing to rise up towards that 14.7 psi mark. As teams here in Mission Control Houston continue to look into what exactly happened with the service and cooling umbilical unit on NASA astronaut Tracy Dyson spacesuit, they were asking the crew aboard the International Space Station to take some observations and provide some best guesses and estimates of the amount of water that they were seeing inside the crew lock.
Excuse me.
Just got the bat amp high, bat amp 5.1. EV1.
Copy, and that's expected.
It was expected. They wanted me to report it, though.
And Houston copies.
Houston, did you copy?
Houston copied.
Roger. Copy my copy.
The pressure in the crew lock now just under 12 pounds per square inch as it continues the repressurization process. You heard NASA astronaut Tracy Dyson reporting some levels on her spacesuit battery. As a result of the water leak in the service and cooling umbilical of her spacesuit, she has stayed on battery power for the duration of the repressurization process. The repressurization of the crew lock on the International Space Station is continuing to take place. It is now at about 13.2 pounds per square inch as it approaches that 14.7 PSI mark before they can open the hatches between the crew lock and the equipment lock to bring NASA astronauts Tracy, Dyson, and Mike Barrett back in and start removing their suits. Today's spacewalk was scheduled to take place and to complete the removal of a faulty electronics box known as the radio frequency group from a communications antenna on the starboard truss of the space station. They were also going to collect samples for analysis to better understand the ability of microorganisms to survive and reproduce on the exterior of the orbiting laboratory. The crew had successfully completed all of the pre-brief protocols and had moved into the crew lock to depressurize and went all the way to vacuum, opened the EV hatch, and switched their suits to battery power. They switched to battery power at 8:46 a.m. Eastern, 7:46 a.m. Central. Shortly after this time, the crew reported a water issue. Shortly after this report, today's spacewalk was officially terminated due to a water leak stemming from the service and cooling umbilical unit on NASA astronaut Tracy Dyson's spacesuit. Since then, the crew has closed the EV hatch and have been working through procedures to repressurize the crew lock before returning inside the station's equipment lock.
By you, it's just turning into a nice house.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Could you see, where's the station lights lighting up the ice?
Yeah.
Interesting.
More importantly, I saw the Terminator.
All right. Well, I'm glad you got a view at least. At least you got that.
At least I got that.
That RFG really wants to stay out there.
Sure does. I didn't want to say it.
Yeah.
The pressure inside the crew lock is now up to just under 14.3 pounds per square inch.
Copy.
Roger.
With the crew lock back up to pressure to match the space station, they are now preparing to open the hatch between the crew lock and the equipment lock.
Okay, the launch is moving. See if I can get my right waist tether off of the D-ring extender for him.
Yeah.
Make that a little easier.
And let's wait till Matt puts the water switch cards on.
Okay.
And the hatch is now open at 8:51 a.m. Central, 9:51 a.m. Eastern.
All right, Houston, the hatch is open, and I'm just going in there to look for water before I move anybody or anything.
Copy, we're listening.
Matt, you got those water switch cards? Yes.
So that's in the procedure, we'll get there. Tracy, can you point to where you think you saw water?
Okay. And there's one on the hatch. One here. Yes. I think those might be drops, I'm not sure. See it? Okay. Don't look at my leg. Thank you. You said I couldn't go back until I had RFC, so.
Oh, yeah.
This is. Then see where it says last in Sharpie. It's really unimpressive now. But there's some on my gloves, I think, still, or at least it was does. Got it warm now. It's all pretty much evaporated.
In that airlock inspection, the only drops are on Tracy's side of the crew lock. Maybe 4 on the wall, or 3 to 4 millimeters in diameter. A small one on her visor, but there's very little water. I mean, there's like nothing. 4 or 5 drops on the wall. That's all I can find.
Houston, copies. Good report.
Pat, we're going to go ahead and start pulling them out if you're good with that.
Houston concurs.
Houston, if you start the steps 4 and 5 of 70-0155.
Hey, Matt, we're working step 4. We'll let the crew know once they're no longer hot mic'd. So right now they are still hot mic'd.
Copy. They understand they're still hot mic, and we're stepping into step 8 since we don't have any of the RFG stuff.
That's a good understanding.
After opening the hatch between the equipment lock and the crew lock, NASA astronaut Dominick went into the crew lock portion where NASA astronauts Tracy, Dyson, and Mike Barrett are, just to inspect the crew lock for any water particles as a result of the SU.
Look for message 433 for procedure deltas. 433.
Copy 433.
To inspect for any water particles as a result of the water leak in the service and cooling umbilical unit on Tracy Dyson's spacesuit. Matt Dominick and Jeanette Epps, currently on your screen, will now work to move Tracy Dyson and Mike Barrett back into the equipment lock. After they are back in the equipment lock, they will remove the SAFER, or Simplified Aid for EVA Rescue, from the back of their spacesuits. They will then begin some steps for suit doffing or removal.
TC and Mike, you are no longer hot mic'd.
And you can now see NASA astronaut Mike Barrett currently being moved from the crew lock to the equipment lock portion of the International Space Station's Quest airlock. The SAFER, or Simplified Aid for EVA Rescue, has been removed from the back of NASA astronaut Mike Barrett's extravehicular mobility unit, or EMU, which is the white spacesuit that he's currently wearing. You can now see.
Houston airlock on 1. Understand the messages on board?
Paper messages on board, number 433.
Can you give me a step where I need to start looking at that message? Because I want to keep moving with the crew.
Yeah, some of them are going to be pretty apparent and related to the RFG. So in step 54 is probably where you see a delta that's just a stowage step, and then look closely on the rest of the steps.
I'm not going to look at that message until I get to step 53. Does that work?
That'll work, Matt.
And yeah, I think the only thing we didn't do is we didn't take photographs, but there was really nothing significant other than water. I can get a picture of a water droplet if you want it.
We're all set, Matt. Your description was really, really helpful.
And then the safers are getting packaged up. Jeanette and I are going to focus on Mike and TC, and after that, Team Starliner is going to go in there and do your video tour for the IV hatch and the airlock. Does that work for you guys?
That works for us. Thanks.
Both NASA astronauts Mike Barrett and Tracy Dyson have had their SAFERs, or Simplified Aid for EVA Rescues, removed from the back of their suits, and they're now working through procedures to begin doffing or removing their EMUs.
Airlock Houston, I want to give you an update on COM here. We're having some KU issues on TDRS 275. We're coming up on a 275 pass here pretty soon. So big picture, we're not going to get video down from you. That's not a constraint. We could come back on board later for the video tour.
Say time for post TDRS 275, the GMT time we can expect it to be good?
Checking. Right, Matt, GMT 1434, we're going to be on another satellite.
1434, will kill.
On your screen, you're seeing NASA astronaut Mike Barrett on the left-hand side and NASA astronaut Tracy Dyson on the right-hand side in the extravehicular mobility units. They had donned those spacesuits several hours ago and completed pre-breathe protocols, moved into the crew lock, depressurized the crew lock down to vacuum, opened the EV hatch, and turned their spacesuits on to battery power. Shortly after setting their suits to battery power at 8:46 a.m. Eastern, 7:46 a.m. Central, the crew reported a water issue. After some brief troubleshooting on the ground, the spacewalk was officially terminated due to this water leak that was resulting from the service and cooling umbilical unit on NASA astronaut Tracy Dyson's spacesuit. The service and cooling umbilical is an umbilical that attaches the EMU, or extravehicular mobility unit, to transfer electrical power, hardline communications, oxygen, cooling water, and feed water between the International Space Station and the EMU, or extravehicular mobility unit. At no time was the crew in any danger during this water leak, but as a result of the termination of the spacewalk, the EV hatch was closed, and they began the process to repressurize the crew lock, bringing it back up to 14.7 pounds per square inch. They then opened the hatch between the crew lock and the equipment lock and moved NASA astronauts Mike Barrett and Tracy Dyson back into the equipment lock, where they removed their SAFERs, or simplified aid for EVA rescue, and have now begun doffing or removing their suits. We will continue to provide live coverage of the suit doffing procedures until their helmets have been removed. Can now see NASA astronaut Butch Wilmore in the center of your screen. He's part of NASA's Boeing crew flight test currently on board the International Space Station. He is capturing some photos of the glove of NASA astronaut Tracy Dyson's EMU, or extravehicular mobility unit. As a result of today's spacewalk termination, they are working to gather some extra imagery to send to teams here on the ground to investigate and troubleshoot and really determine a cause of the leak in the service and cooling umbilical unit. We are now in a handover between satellites for the tracking and data relay satellite system. While we won't have video for approximately 20 minutes, expecting to regain it at 9:34 a.m. Central, we will still have audio communications with the crew as they continue to work through steps to doff or remove the spacesuits from NASA astronaut Tracy, Dyson, and Mike Barrett. We have also received word from today's spacewalk officer that today's spacewalking time was 31 minutes, and this is the time from switching the suits to internal battery power, which took place at 7:46 a.m. Central, 8:46 a.m. Eastern, to the time that the repressurization of the crew lock took place at 8:17 a.m. Central, 9:17 a.m. Eastern. With this 31 minutes, that brings NASA astronaut Tracy Dyson's spacewalking time up to 23 hours and 20 minutes across 4 EVAs. And for NASA astronaut Mike Barrett, that brings him up to 5 hours and 37 minutes of spacewalking time across 3 EVAs.
Airlock Houston on 1 for Deltas.
Houston, go ahead with Deltas.
Matt, we currently don't have video, so we're just going to feed these deltas to you now. In step 61 and 63, it has you removing the absorbent materials. We want you to leave those installed for now. And when you get to it later, leave SCUs connected. And that's for both suits.
For everybody.
A firm for everybody.
Okay. We got a lot of deltas Houston where we're tracking here. The first deltas I see are in 47 to 50, and then 61, 63.
We copy. Good. That's a good understanding of the deltas. And as a reminder, Matt.
Well, Houston, my XGP does not have a 63, so that's easy not to do. And 61 is just taking the helmet absorption pads out, so we'll leave those in the helmets, no problem.
Yep, that's good. And step 54 for the PGT batteries, those could go in the mesh bag, so that's the other delta.
Okay, PGT's going to a mesh bag. Okay. We're going to probably try to get these folks out of the suits, and then we might have to do clips later for those things. There's a lot of things in my head. Appreciate it.
We copy, no worries.
Houston, all the pics we took today are on SSC6, and that includes the glove pictures, and the only thing of note was inboard right side of Tracy's index finger. So the inboard side of Tracy's index finger, is there anything that might be of question?
Thanks, Butch. We'll look at SSC 6. Appreciate the words.
Yeah, I think I said left hand. Just to clarify, it is the left hand, in the inboard side of the left index finger.
Copy. Left hand, we were just asking about that ourselves.
We continue to be in a loss of signal for the video feeds coming from the International Space Station due to a transfer of ground stations, but we still have audio communications with the crew on board the station as they continue to work through steps to remove the extravehicular mobility units currently on NASA astronauts Tracy, Dyson, and Mike Barrett following today's 31-minute spacewalk. The spacewalk time officially began at 7:46 a.m. Central when they switched their suits to battery power. The crew had opened the hatch of the Quest airlock before reporting a water issue. This water issue was traced to a water leak in the service and cooling umbilical unit on NASA astronaut Tracy Dyson's spacesuit. As a result of this issue, U.S. Spacewalk 90 for today was terminated. The crew then worked with ground controllers to repressurize the crew lock section of the Quest airlock before returning inside the station's equipment lock, where they are currently working through those steps to remove their spacesuits. For today's spacewalk, they had planned to complete the removal of a faulty electronics box known as a radio frequency group from a communications antenna on the starboard truss of the space station. They were also going to collect some samples for analysis to understand the ability of microorganisms to survive and reproduce on the exterior of the orbiting laboratory. The spacewalk was expected to last about 6.5 hours. Teams here in Mission Control Houston are continuing to troubleshoot and work through steps to better understand the water leak issue that was reported, and the crew aboard the International Space Station are also working to collect imagery of the crew lock and of the spacesuits to send to teams here on the ground to inspect further. While today's spacewalk was terminated early, the crew was at no time in any danger. At the time of the spacewalk termination, it was unclear how much water was left in the water tanks of her suit, which is why the spacewalk was terminated early as a precautionary measure. The service and cooling umbilical on NASA astronaut Tracy Dyson's suit that was experiencing that water leak is an umbilical that transfers electrical power, hardline communications, oxygen, cooling water, and feed water between the International Space Station and the extravehicular mobility unit. We will continue to provide live coverage all the way until we receive video views back and we confirm that NASA astronaut Tracy Dyson and Mike Barrett have had their helmets removed. We expect to regain video feed here in about 12 minutes at 9:34 a.m. Central, 10:34 a.m. Eastern. On your screen now, you can see Flight Director Rebecca Wingfield towards the bottom. She is the lead flight director for today's spacewalk operations. She's currently speaking with the flight controllers here in the International Space Station Flight Control Room as they continue to discuss today's spacewalk and the issues that arose and also work through troubleshooting and next steps. We now have confirmation that NASA astronauts Tracy, Dyson, and Mike Barrett are out of their spacesuits following today's 31-minute spacewalk. U.S. Spacewalk 90 was going to complete the removal of a faulty electronics box from a communications antenna on the starboard truss of the space station. They were also planning to collect samples for analysis to better understand the ability of microorganisms to survive and reproduce on the exterior of the orbiting laboratory. While the spacewalk was intended to last 6.5 hours, it was terminated shortly after the suits were set to battery power at 7:46 a.m. Central, 8:46 a.m. Eastern. The crew had opened the extravehicular hatch on the Quest airlock before reporting a water issue. This water issue was traced to a water leak in the service and cooling umbilical unit on NASA astronaut Tracy Dyson's spacesuit. At no time was the crew in any danger, but they did make the decision to terminate the spacewalk as it was unclear how much water was left in the water tanks of Tracy Dyson's suit. The crew then closed the EV hatch and worked with ground controllers to repressurize the crew lock section of the Quest airlock before returning inside the station's equipment lock. The crew then worked to remove their spacesuits, and they have successfully removed from their extravehicular mobility unit or EMUs to complete today's spacewalk activities. The official duration of today's spacewalk was 31 minutes. That brings NASA astronaut Tracy Dyson's total spacewalking time up to 23 hours and 20 minutes across 4 EVAs, and it brings NASA astronaut Mike Barrett up to 5 hours time across. Team Mission Control Houston will continue to spend the day troubleshooting and collecting imagery and data from the crew aboard the International Space Station to better understand what exactly happened with the service and cooling umbilical unit and the water leak that took place today. With that, we will conclude our coverage of today's spacewalk activities. This is Mission Control Houston.